Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Best Damn Sports Show in Franklin County for Wednesday, March 20th. Please know February, March 20th, 2019. I am the Nighthawk, along with our studio director, Zach, and on the panel this week, Super Dave. The Duke has taken this week off. And if Dave, if I may take one moment to do some back patting, today begins our 17th season of the Best Damn Sports Show in Franklin County. We started the show back in 2003, March 20th, 2003. So we've completed 16 full seasons, approximately about 812 shows.
Wow.
And you've been on the show for how many years?
Oh, probably 4 or 5 anyway.
Yep. So, I wish the Duke was here so I could congratulate him on that. And did I think way back then that would be going this long? No. But you know what? I still enjoy it. And like, perfect example was last week. I was busting at the seams. I told you when Odell Beckham got traded,
I know.
My wife could care less. I couldn't talk to her about it. And I would have paid to be on the show last week just to talk about it. So I got all that out of my system. So we begin season number 17. And the first topic tonight, the Roy Al Patrick Jim last Saturday, UVM Catamounts in the America East Championship against
UMBC.
Right, who has beaten UVM 3 times in a row, including last year's America East Championship. So I would not have bet a penny on that game. But they did not have a difficult time. And some people were fortunate enough to be down there. Do you know anyone, David?
I do. As a reporter, I saw Nick Mumley there too, by the way.
Nick was there.
Nick was at the game. The big difference between this year and last year is last year UMBC had the best player on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
They had that guy that scored the last second shot. Plus he was terrific. They couldn't stop him. This year we did.
Anthony Lamb Jr.
was
28 points.
He was unstoppable with about 4 or 5 minutes to go in the game. Lamb, 0-0 or 0, is that Shengtu?
Ben, yeah.
Shengu, or 3 guys had all of UVM's points except for 4. And but they were better. UMBC was nowhere as good as they were last year. They couldn't shoot. They couldn't stop them. And we were better.
Yeah, and it was somewhat head-scratching to me watching that game is how in the heck did they beat us twice this season?
Who knows?
And that's what I was concerned about. Sometimes a certain team has your number, but not last Saturday.
Our guys played exceptional defense. They played really hard.
So, David, the game started at 11 on ESPN2. So the Nighthawk recorded it, and I watched the game in my king-size bed, rather comfortable. Now, I know you were there in person, but watching that, it looked like you were sitting like sardines. It looked uncomfortable.
It's a tight fit, and we were sitting next to the band.
Oh.
So, but not very far up.
Well, there's not a bad seat. The place is so small.
No, and it was really, really loud.
Yeah.
The fans were really into it. And last year, what happened was UVM was ahead by about 10 points, but they never could get over the edge. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember if it was halftime or the first couple minutes of the second half where the game really got close. This time, the first few minutes of the second half, we just kept stretching it and stretching it. And you got to figure they did pretty well considering that Ernie Duncan, I don't think got any points till about 3-4 minutes left in the game.
Exactly. I think he got 5 points the last 3 minutes of the game.
And but like any good shooter, he kept taking them, and then finally he got a couple towards the end. And UVM, I think,
David, I mean,
head and shoulders better than
they graduated
UMBC.
6 players off the team. They always have a good team. Becker's a good coach.
This guy's good.
Great recruiter, but I didn't expect this year.
Well, they're good, and he's got a reputation now. And I think they got a raw deal getting stuck with Florida State. Of course, the big boys that do the selection.
Explain to me why.
Well, Florida State is really good.
Do you know what the spread on the game is,
It must be 20 points.
It's actually only 9.
That's not nearly enough.
You can check on your tweet machine later, but I checked the USA Today spread. They had FSU by 9.
They must be afraid of America East.
Okay.
And the reason I say it was a bad deal, of course, the selection process, they all talk about Cinderella, but the evil stepmother is those Big 5 conferences.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want any UVMs. They don't want any of the little guys to come through. And so what they do, they gave Florida State a 4 seed. Florida State only lost to Duke by 2 points in the ACC championship game. They've got a couple of 7-footers or 6'10", 11 guys. They are really, really good. And if Zion Williamson hadn't have scored 31 points, Florida State would be there. So what they did is they threw UVM a ball and they gave them a nice short road trip, but they stuck them in with Florida State.
Yeah. And Becker said, I only have one request. Every NCAA tourney we've been out west. Please put us east. Now, when we beat Florida State tomorrow, we've got the winner of Marquette and Murray State. And Murray State, if I'm not mistaken, has the player, I think his last name is Morant, and he's on the mock drafts, he'll be the number 2 pick in June, right?
Really?
Behind Williamson. So, well, David, you had the good fortune of being at the Patrick Gym on Saturday, but my gosh, who would have the good fortune being there live in person tomorrow in Hartford? Do you know anybody?
I do.
Who?
I was lucky. Of course, I'm not a real diehard fan. I only go to 1 or 2 games a year. And what happened?
You got to tell me how you got the tickets.
Okay.
And who you're going with.
Well, that's the other sad story. I shouldn't put that on TV. I'm going with my wife.
She's not watching, is she?
No.
What are you wasting a ticket for?
What happened?
You could have brought one of your buddies with you.
You won't believe this, but Monday morning, or not Monday morning, Sunday morning, I get up and I'm already making plans, thinking, okay, maybe I can get tickets from General Motors. Of course, Buick is a big sponsor for the NCAA. And I called our regional ad guy, and he called somebody, and he told me he couldn't find me any tickets. And then about 2 o'clock this afternoon, the zone manager called me up and said he had somebody down in Connecticut who had 4 tickets, but they can only use 2. So I got to meet him at the will call tomorrow. But anyways, what happened, I was planning on a road trip with one of my lucky buddies somewhere. And
Mrs. Handy.
She
intervened.
Sunday morning goes, I think I would like to go to that basketball game. And
Sure, honey.
I just saw it happen. We had to go to Nashua, New Hampshire on Friday because Sam has the New England Music Festival somewhere near Boston.
Okay.
So we were going down anyway. And now we're going down a day early, and I don't know what we're doing tomorrow night.
Well, the game's tomorrow at 2. What are you doing here?
Well, we're going to drive down in the morning.
And let me guess. Get Hartford 6 hours?
Oh no. Hartford, I made it home from Hartford one time in 3 hours and 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But that's going way too fast. It's a 4-hour trip, normally speaking.
So you'll leave around 8 in the morning?
We're going to leave at 8. And my daughter, Emmy, went to school in Hartford. So we know Hartford halfway decent.
Yeah. And do they play at the former home of the Hartford
Whalers?
I
think so, the Civic Center.
Now, is that attached to a mall?
I think so. I've never been there.
Yeah.
And where Trinity College is just like a block or 2 away from there.
Yeah.
So...
Well, let me say something about the game tomorrow. And I know Florida State's big, and we're certainly not big. But with the advent of the 3-point line, if you're a hot, okay, you can beat a team much better than you. It's like a goaltender in hockey, right? They stand on their head.
Well, I
But-
don't have a good feeling.
Well, I don't either.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't bet 2 cents on UVM either. Plus, I would certainly give the 9 points, and I'd put my money on FSU. But if they shoot 45% from the 3-point line,
They can, and if they really need to have their three guys lighten it up, and in the championship game, Lamb took quite a few threes, and he was fortunate that he got fouled on about 3 of them.
yes, he did. Yep.
And so he was able to make the foul shots. I think he made 7 out of 9. And that was another big difference this year from this year to last year. UVM made almost all their foul shots. Yep. Last year, they missed almost all their foul shots.
And I say it many a times, when you lose a game and you wonder why, grab your stat sheet and just check your free throws.
Free throws are
a lot of
huge.
times, that's the difference in the game. Absolutely.
And but
So you're going down to Hartford tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday, and you're going to hang out for a couple days down there?
we're going to Hartford tomorrow. Of course, the game will be done 4 o'clock, 4:30.
Yeah. You're not staying for the second game, are you?
No, we're going to go to.
Well, let me ask you before you go on. Do they shoot everybody out of the arena?
I believe they do, but I
And let
can't
the-
remember.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
can't remember.
I'll be curious.
I almost think they do. I think you get separate tickets for each game.
Okay.
Kind of makes sense because if you figure Vermont has their people, now I bet you there are people that have tickets for both games.
Yeah.
But I suspect that there are people that only have a ticket for one game.
Yeah. So you'll take Mrs. Handy out to your
Yeah.
favorite restaurant in Hartford?
Yeah.
After the game?
Probably a place called the First and Last.
Yeah. So you're right. Emmy went to Trinity College.
Which
down
is
there?
in Hartford.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And
So, but your Boston thing is until Saturday, so you have an extra day to kill.
so we're going to, I think we're going to stay in Sturbridge. There's some touristy thing that somebody's already made the arrangements.
Okay.
And so it's like,
Now, what's Sturbridge?
I don't know.
What is that? That's in Massachusetts?
It's in Massachusetts somewhere.
Okay.
Of course, you can go. I had one weekend many, many years ago when all my kids were playing hockey. I had one weekend where I drove
Let's grab a
from
call.
Maine to Connecticut and back twice.
Okay. Let's grab a call. Good evening, and I thank you very much for being in the first caller tonight on the Best Damn Sports Show in Franklin County. Hello.
Good evening, the dynamic duo.
Yes.
Yeah. How are you, caller?
It was. I watched the game Saturday. It was good to kick back here on my recliner and watch it. It did look loud.
was.
And crowded, but there seemed to be a lot of electricity in the air. Yeah, they played. I'm not used to watching like UVM. I'm a big Tar Heel fan. I have been forever, and I'm used to watching Duke. Teams like that, Virginia, and I could see the difference in it. Like a little step down, if you will.
It's a huge
And I'm
step
saying
down.
this in a very kind way.
Yeah.
I really noticed a big difference. But they played well in this slam. It's the first time I saw him play, and geez, what a warrior this guy is.
Oh,
And the plan of the other team was definitely to shut Lamb down, and they were kind of all over him. And geez, he still had a great game. I was a little nervous like everybody else because it didn't seem like we knew we were better than this team, but we just didn't match well with them when they, beating us twice. But, I watched right off in the beginning, Lamb was fouled a few times, and he was red hot from the foul line. And I said, geez, this guy is as good as it gets from the foul line. And they broke open a bit right there, broke it open a little more, and kept a lead. At one point, it started to get a little bit close, and UVM kind of opened it up again, but they were very dominant, and they were very fun to watch. and I looked for you, David, in there. I knew you were at
too.
the game, but I couldn't see you, and they kept bringing the camera around, and I saw 3 or 4 people that I knew that made it pretty cool, you know. But it was a good game, and yeah, I watched the pairings the other night, and I felt the same way you did, David, with Florida State. Now, I watched these guys play maybe a week or 2 ago against the Tar Heels, and they stayed with the Tar Heels most of the game, but the difference was, as you guys mentioned, the three-pointers sunk Florida State because out of all our teams over the years with the Tar Heels, I can't say this is our best team, but it's the best three-point shooting team. And the Florida State has one guy, 7'4", and this guy, believe it or not, is somewhat athletic too.
Yeah.
So, I don't know basketball like you guys do, but I know it'd be hard to beat this guy in the paint, and you might as well shoot them 3-point bombs because, you don't get your own rebound on them anyway.
Yeah. And that's
So-
that's my decree is the 3-pointers better go in.
Now,
Yeah.
there was
And, that's what they've got to do to win this game. They got to, kind of stay out of foul trouble and, be red hot with the threes. But, it's something. It's pretty cool just to be there. It says a lot about the program. It's, very nice to see Vermont in there. And, you always get, at that game, you're going to get the majority of the people, I'm sure, rooting for Vermont, being the underdog, that little state tucked up in the corner, So it should be a very good game, David. You're very lucky and fortunate to go.
well,
So that'll be good, and certainly the best of luck to the Catamounts. They had a great season, and a very good way to end it off there. Not particularly that game, but I'd like to get a couple games into it.
Well, caller, the thing is though with Vermont, unlike 5 or 10 years ago, when they really didn't play very many big teams, this team didn't they play Louisville this year?
They
played Kansas.
They load up first month of the season with
They
some
played 2 other conference winners
Yep.
that they beat.
Yep.
So they're I'm sure in awe of the talent of Florida State, but I don't think the situation is too big for them.
They seem to play to the level of the competition.
And one of the other differences, when I think back to UVM beating Syracuse in 05 or whenever it was, UVM then really only had 5 or 6 players. They were really good, Coppenrath and those guys. But Syracuse played a very slow game that night, and it let them not wear out. One of the things that Michigan State did the next game was they ran the crap right out of them. They ran hard, and but this UVM team is deep.
Yep.
I don't think you lose a lot unless you take unless Lamb is out.
No, I agree. They're 9 deep, and they'll be able to keep up.
The kid from Rice, he's turned into a pretty good player too.
Yep.
Dingba or.
Yeah, I can't. My head's not all that sharp.
He's
tonight.
not an offensive powerhouse, but he's really a defensive whiz, and he really works hard on the boards. So it'll be fun to go. I mean, their chances of winning, I don't think.
Oh, without a doubt. You don't get to see that every day. It sounds like you got an action-packed weekend, David. It sounds really good.
Almost too much. Now, I hate to switch the subject. But what about not Bryce Harper? How about Mike Trout getting $430 million?
I was going to ask you, and this caller is usually the leadoff man. So to you, David, and to you, caller, I have just one question. Who were the LA Angels competing against on this contract? Yankees don't need an outfielder. Red Sox don't need an outfielder. Dodgers wouldn't spend that kind of money. So again, who were they competing against other than themselves? Harper set the bar at 330. I think you could have gotten by with $350,000.
Who's to
Now,
say?
with that being
Machado
said,
go first this year.
Machado went for 300. But if Harper is worth 330, he's here. Mike Trout is probably best ball player in the last 50 years. Okay, and I'm serious.
I read an article tonight before I came that said they took all the guys that were equivalent to Mike Trout through his age 27 or 28 season. You got like Mickey Mantle, Henry Aaron, Frank Robinson, all of those guys. From age 31 on, none of those, or like 4 of those guys were like batting champs, home run champs, any of that stuff from 31 on. Now, these were guys that were home run champs, MVPs, blah, blah, blah. From age 31 on, there's a significant drop-off. But, I mean, maybe the Angels and Trout, if you're going to give the money to anybody, you're going to give it to Trout.
Yeah.
And number 2, the other thing that one of the guys on MLB said, I think we talked about a couple of weeks ago, said, look, if you can't sign him to a long-term deal, trade him now.
Yep, I agree.
And so they did.
You know, the problem with Trout, if he played for the Yankees or the Red Sox, he'd be like the second Babe Ruth. He's that good. But 2 strikes against him. He plays out on the West Coast. Nobody sees their games. And number 2, the Angels are just a pathetic
They're
ball
not
club.
good.
No.
They think they are
There's
getting
nobody around him.
No.
I think to protect him right now, you have Pujols, but he's certainly in the twilight of his career. And, name me their top 2 pitchers. Who's their closer?
Yeah.
their
Who's
best
that
pitcher's
third?
is their
he's
hitter.
a very dedicated man to his community, and there's probably 435 million reasons to be. But, like mentioned before, at some point you would think you'd want a chance to win the World Series ring. But I read a little bit on Mookie Betts tonight too, where the Red Sox had offered him $200 million. I forgot how many years it was, and he refused it. And the way they were talking, we have him this year and next year, so we have 2 more years with Mookie. And I would play the beans right out of him. I don't care if he's in a cast; he'd be playing, and I would let him go after that. I mean, like I say, there's at least with Mike Trout, there's nobody else to pay on the team.
Yeah.
That money goes to him. There's not a $10 million player on the team around him. But again, as I say every week, you look around with the Red Sox, there's 4 of them that need a raise. And, I'm all for spreading the money around. Mookie, basically what he said is, I'm not going to take a hometown discount, and I'll see my worth when I'm a free agent. So it looks pretty much like that's how it'll play out with him.
Yeah. I thought about what you said a couple weeks ago. If Bogarts continues to hit 25 home runs at that shortstop position, he would probably get about $10 million less than Betts. You probably could get a Bradley and a Bogarts together for the same price as a Betts. And that might be the way to go. And again, as great as Mookie is, outfielders are fairly easy to replace, but a shortstop that can hit 25 home runs are far and few between.
Well, if I were Mookie Betts' agent, I would make a deal with the Red Sox and not go to free agent, because the Red Sox want him more than anybody, and he knows he can play there. When you go to free agents today, there's not a lot out. You're going to end up in like Chicago, or because the Yankees sure as hell aren't going to take him.
Right. The big players, the Angels obviously are out.
The Dodgers aren't going to pay him $400
Dodgers
million.
are up to the cap. Red Sox aren't going to pay him. Yankees don't need an outfielder. So the 4 major players are out, and you're right. It's going to be a Philadelphia, who still has money, or a Chicago White Sox.
Now, the other guy that's going to benefit from this is Judge, because Judge is going to be
no doubt about it.
He's
going to
make
be
some big
licking his
money.
chops right now.
And though Judge,
The the thing I look around though at Mookie Betts when I'm looking at these long contracts, Mookie Betts to me does not have a 10-year body. Mike Trout is thick, strong. Machado is a strong guy. Bryce Harper is fit as a fiddle.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could get 10 years out of Mookie's body, playing hard like he does.
You know what? And not that I think about Chris Sale's body every day, but I was thinking about Chris Sale today when he becomes a free agent. If he's healthy, he could easily win another Cy Young. But I look at Chris Sale's body. That body does not look like a 8-year,
No.
$30 million a year.
Doesn't even look
body.
like a 5-year.
He looks like a marathon runner.
But that's the other thing they were talking about now is there were a couple guys got extensions today, and they're talking about Rendon for the Nationals.
Yeah.
He didn't get an extension, but Bregman got one.
Right.
They bought out his last 2 arbitration years.
What did he sign for? 200? I don't. But Jimenez, Elroy Jimenez,
he's
signed.
Yeah, he's on the White Sox. He's yet to really play in a major league game, but the guy's going to be a superstar. He's hit at every level, and he signed, what was it, like a 5 or 6 year for $43 million?
Well, I think what you're going to see now is that the agents are realizing that unless you're Bryce Harper or Manny Machado or Trout, the regular free agents, you better take your money now.
And David, I hate to agree with you, but generally a free agent is not going to be 26 like a Machado or a Harper. It's going to be closer to 30. And there's something about that 31 year of age where you see production start to decline. You don't want to spend $250 million minimum for something that somebody's done for another ball club.
Yes.
Don't reward somebody else for what they've done in the past.
And the Yankees signed, just to give you an idea of how the other end of the spectrum is, they signed Gio Gonzalez for $3 million.
Now, Gio, just to show you folks, Gio Gonzalez, a decent pitcher. Unfortunately, he choked last year in his contract year because I think the previous year he was a 5th in the Cy Young voting. But the Nats has signed him for 3 years, $36 million. That's $12 million a year. And the best he could come up with a week and a half before the start of the season is $3 million from the Yankees.
And that's a minor league deal.
And that's just because the Yankees starting staff is banged up right now.
It's a minor league deal, and he has
Banged up with that Sessa guy. You can't hit him. Sessa and Jermaine are German. These guys, you can't put a bat on the ball. Sessa's pitched 3-4 times. His ERA is .050.
Yeah. Oh. Now, the Sessa, in fact, I looked him up today. I know nothing about this guy. He's 26 years old. So I said to myself, where has he been hiding for the last 5 years? Who is this guy?
He's been
Louis Sessa.
He's been up and down. He's had like 8 cups of coffee.
Okay.
Whenever they needed a pitcher, they'd bring him up. He pitches okay. I think with the Yankees, they like their young guys to be in a bullpen, and then they like to have established pitchers like Happ.
Yeah.
They've got a warm spot for pitchers that they know what they're going to get. And we had a little bad news today or yesterday. Betances is going to start the season on a DL shoulder. They think a lot of it is because he missed most of the spring training. He got there late because his wife had a baby. And he probably pitched too hard. His shoulder's swollen.
I'll tell you who I would be concerned about, Severino. He's got a rotator cuff. I'm sorry. That's nothing minor. This could be a pretty serious injury for the Yankees, and that could bring him right down to the Red Sox.
And, of course, I heard tonight, just before I got here.
Their system is loaded with pitching, even with Stan's out. Now they're down to 4 potential closers. I mean, there's a big plus about having your system where you can reload without, going out into other teams looking for help.
I heard Kimbrel tonight might sign with Milwaukee.
It'll be a 1 year, maybe $10 million if that. Now, caller, Dustin Pedroia, any concern that he's not ready for opening day?
They said he's not ready, but I got thinking about him the other day. Great player. He was a great person and everything. But if I was him, I'd start looking at my body and say, you know what? After this game, I'd like to be able to walk up and down the stairs. Maybe I should call it quits right now. My knee hasn't been right for a year and a half, and there is life after baseball.
Yeah. And fortunately, though, for him, his motivation is he still has over $100 million left on his contract. So even if he can't walk, he'll be.
Of course, if he has to
the
retire
money's
because
no
of injury,
good if you
the
can't
insurance
walk.
will pay for that.
Because I think, what's he get a year? About $18 million a year?
And we had a sighting of a ghost at Yankee camp.
Jacoby Ellsbury?
Yeah, he finally showed up.
He'll get $21 million this year and $21 million next year. Worst contract in the history of baseball. You don't have anybody
He
compared
didn't
to
play
him.
one out last year.
Yeah.
And he can't even walk now. I guess he can barely walk.
It was his hips, I think, and that what do you call that? Fasciitis with
Plantar
your feet.
fasciitis. And what that
The
is,
poor guy, he was always healthy, and all of a sudden, the last 3 years, he just fell apart.
that plantar fasciitis is the tendon called the plantar tendon, and it's in the middle of your foot. And if you have a bad plantar fasciitis, you can't run it. Your feet hurt.
Oh, and it takes forever to heal,
Yeah,
too.
it's awful.
It's not a major injury, but it just is an injury that takes forever.
Now, if you look at him and you look at Pedroia, if these guys couldn't get ready after not playing for a whole year, and Pedroia hasn't played since June or July, whenever it was, and you can't get ready for spring training, when are you going to get ready?
Yeah. That's my concern is
It's a long way.
Okay, guys, I'll let you guys go, and great show.
Hey, thanks for calling.
Thank you, Colin.
And happy 16th anniversary.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank you.
that. David, I'm concerned. I sit by my phone every day waiting for ESPN to call me to host a show, but it's come for naught. I think the parade's kind of passed me
Yeah,
by.
I think, we don't really have that media presence, and they would rather hire some
Well,
celebrity
David,
that knows a lot less about sports than we do.
that's, you know what? I don't want to sound braggadocious, but I will watch some of these shows and say, these guys don't know a quarter of what I know. And they're on these shows, and I really love it when they talk about Eli Manning. It's like they don't watch the games and they make all these comments about it. So, David, I do want to take a moment here. So I was at Norwich again Saturday night.
Hockey game?
Do we have a call?
We're
Don't want dead air, but is that a thumbs up? Yep, that is a
Yep.
thumbs up. I will hold that thought and say good evening. You're on the best damn sports show in Franklin County. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
It's Nick Mumley.
Nick, we mentioned your name earlier. You were at the Patrick Gym Saturday.
I was down there. I saw Dave, and that was nice to see him there.
How'd you get tickets?
I actually got press passes through the radio station.
Oh,
I've been
big
doing
shot.
some work for them the last little while, and that was fun. And they got me some nice seats.
Yeah, those where you were sitting was great.
So, Nick.
Yeah, it was a good view of the game. Last year I was like 2 rows up from the top, so it was a little bit better.
Yeah. So, Nick, am I mistaken? I told David, I looked up on the computer today and on USA Today that FSU is favored by 9. Is that a correct line on the game?
I believe so. It was either 9 or 11 when I looked earlier.
Okay.
We're going to look it up
But
right now.
it's around that. The games that, David, I saw when you were talking about it should be 20. The games that are the teams that are favored by 20 right now are the ones over the 16. So 20 would be a little bit of a stretch, but I think that they can pull the upset, though. I mean, a lot needs to happen for them and a lot needs to go right, but I think they can do it.
You know what I think the key to the game is Ernie Duncan. Ernie's going to have to show up and score 20 points himself.
Well, what needs to happen is Florida State has 2 7-footers on the roster, so basically UVM just needs to bury them with threes, perimeter shots, stuff like that. We know Anthony Lamb can do that. We know Ernie Duncan can do that. Steph Smith has been, kind of another X factor on this team, along with Ben Shungu. When they're shooting well, they can drop 20, 30 points a game. But there's been a lot of times this year where they haven't been able to find their touch, and that's been UVM's Achilles heel this year. Is their guard play is very inconsistent. Exactly. If they can get Lamb, Ernie Duncan, and Shungu and Steph Smith all going at the same time, then I think that they have just as good a shot as anybody here.
Nick,
10.5 points.
You got 10.5 there? Okay. I don't know much about life, but I do know this, that UVM will not get any second shots tomorrow. With two 7-footers, it's not possible to get a rebound.
Right. UVM's not a great offensive rebounding team anyway.
Right.
But, it's one of those things. UVM's got to stay out of foul trouble, too, because Florida State will run. I believe they have 7 or 8 players that all average, over 5 points a game. They don't have a single star on this team, but, it's just a really, really well-rounded, deep group of good players. And even David Nichols, one of the guys who was on Albany up until last year, he transferred from Albany to Florida State for this season. He comes off the bench for them. So, a familiar foe that could, give some info over for Florida State because they've never seen UVM before. So it works out that way for them.
One point David brought up, though, and I agree, is the Cats have depth. They can go 9 deep.
Yeah.
With good substitution, and I'd like to see the Cats do a fast-paced game. If you're 7'4", I can guarantee you, running up and down the court at a high rate of speed isn't the most favorite thing to do.
Yeah, John Becker's always liked to, set up the offense with Catamounts always run a slower set, but I agree with you. Florida State runs a lot faster than most teams UVM's faced this year because, they've got the athletes and the skill and the length to do so. UVM's going to have to run the floor a little bit. They're going to have to, be out of their comfort zone for a little bit, especially early on in this game now.
Yeah, to your point of setting up your shot, again, it's not necessary. We're not going to get an offensive rebound. So you run down the court, and when you're open, just shoot. And just hopefully you're hot and shoot 45% of threes, and that might get it done.
Yeah, and it's all going to be, the start is going to be the most important part of the game. UVM's going to need to keep this game, close for the first, 15 minutes up to halftime. If UVM's within 5 points, they can get the job done. But, if they come out slow, then that could be an entirely different thing. If they go down 10 in the first 5 minutes, you can turn off your TV. The game's pretty much over. Because, Florida State, you need to be able to get those offensive rebounds and second chances to make a big comeback against a team like that, and they're simply not going to.
Hey, Nick, are you taking the day off from work tomorrow?
Tomorrow, I'm actually getting up at about 5:30 in the morning, and I'm going down with a couple of buddies, and I'll be at Hartford for the game.
What? Wait. How in the heck did you get tickets?
My buddy ordered some, and I was able to get a press pass from 1013. They were nice enough to give me one of those.
Wow. Are you going to be sitting in the press box?
I'm assuming the assumption is that I'll be on press row. I'm not sure yet,
okay,
though.
Good. Well, you can say
we'll
hi to David and his lovely wife tomorrow afternoon.
Will you be there too, David?
Yeah, we're leaving. You're leaving earlier than we are. We're leaving at 8.
Yeah, we're also leaving around 8 as well. I just we're leaving from Alberg, so it'll be about a half an hour drive for me over there. So
good for you.
But yeah, I'll definitely look for you. I know I've got a couple of people who I know are going as well. It's going to be like a home game for UVM. It really will.
Yeah, they'll have a lot of support there.
Now, Nick, did UVM offer tickets? Do they have X number of tickets to offer to the fans?
I don't believe so. I think that the way it went was you just bought tickets off of the website, either through the NCAA or the arena there, the Excel Center in Hartford.
Yeah.
Of course, where the Whalers used to play back in the day, and you get you buy a ticket, and the ticket is good for 2 games. You get UVM Florida State, and then you get Marquette and Murray State, which is another game I'm really excited for.
Now,
afterwards.
Nick,
So,
on Murray
really fun.
State, name that player on Murray State.
Ja Morant.
Okay, he's
He's a lottery
He's
pick.
predicted to be the second pick in the June draft behind Zion Williamson.
Yep. Basically, this is Ja Morant is more or less if a top 5 pick came to UVM. That's just the kind of player he is at the kind of school he's at. Nobody really thought that he would become this good of a player, but he is just incredible. I think he'll single-handedly win the game for Murray State tomorrow afternoon. I'm really excited to see that because Marquette and one of the players on Marquette and Ja Morant are the top 2 leading scorers in the tournament. And then Anthony Lamb is like 7th and Zion Williamson is 6th.
Are you telling me Murray State 12th ranked against number 5 Marquette? You're telling me predicting an upset?
I think there will absolutely be an upset right there.
David, could you tell me the spread on that game?
Sure.
I think it's 5 or 6 at this point.
Okay. Now, where is Murray State?
The Murray
I
State
believe
Racers,
it's in
right?
Kentucky.
Kentucky? Okay, I don't know. And that's
They're in the Ohio Valley Conference.
okay. And their nickname's the Erasers?
The Racers.
The Racers.
Oh,
yeah.
Racers, I was going to say.
Yeah.
So, well, it sounds
yeah.
like you're going to have a great time, Nick.
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Hey, before I let you guys go, what did you guys think? Are you done with the Giants yet? Have you thrown in the towel?
Are you
We're
kidding me? We're ecstatic. I would have traded Beckham for a $10 gift certificate
4.5
to
points.
Subway. So,
Okay.
so Murray State's underdog by 4.5. So a very doable game. That should be a really good game.
We think the Giants made it. If they got nothing back, if they got a bag of pucks, they did all right by getting rid of Beckham.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
instead,
I think it was a good trade.
they got really 2 first-round picks because the safety.
Peppers was
Right.
a first-round pick.
Yep.
And we've got the 17th overall pick.
And a third-round pick.
That we could end up, I don't think we're going to go after Haskins at number 6, Nick. I think
That's what I've been hearing is they don't want Haskins.
I
which
think
is
Montez Sweat
interesting.
out of MSU, Mississippi State, or Rashawn Gary, defensive end out of Michigan. But with that 17th pick, if we want a quarterback, we could go after potentially Drew Lock from Missouri will be there. And for sure, Daniel Jones out of Duke will definitely be there. In fact,
I've been hearing Jared Stidham out of Auburn as well.
Yeah, I don't see him going in the first, but I just
It's
don't.
been-
I think Gettleman wants to rebuild this defense like in a hurry by the draft. So I
Yeah,
don't
I
think,
think-
quarterback's not a pressing need.
Yeah, it is and it isn't for the Giants because, we've talked about it before. They have Eli Manning and that'll get you through for a while.
Well, Nick, let me throw
but-
this scenario out at you. Again, the Giants have the 17th pick. I think the Dolphins have the 13th overall pick. And all winter, they were picked to pick a quarterback. But they picked up our good buddy Ryan Fitzpatrick on a 2-year deal.
Does not look like the Dolphins want to win any games next year.
Do you know how to say the word tank? I think ESPN came out with their ranking today. They had Miami at 32. Miami wants to go 1-15 next year, and they can get that Justin
they want
Herbert
Tua.
out of Oregon or the kid from Alabama whose name I cannot pronounce.
Tua Tagovailoa.
Tua.
Nick, you're really good at your pronunciations. I'll give you credit.
Or the kid from Clemson, if he comes out early.
The long hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
One of the Hanson brothers.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, and if I'm a Dolphin fan, I don't mind tanking. Be patient.
They've been
Wait a
tanking
year.
for the last 30 years. So
Yeah,
you think it would.
Exactly. So
So yeah, I like the trade for the Giants as well. I think, I think it's difficult, but what Gettleman cannot afford to try to expedite the process at all, because a good rebuild takes 3 or 4 years. We've seen it with the Philadelphia 76ers in basketball. We've seen it with the Houston Astros in baseball. You've got to build up your team for a little bit. You can't declare, oh, we're going to a rebuild, and then expect to be competing for a championship 2 years later. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
you need time to build up a team through the draft and get that quarterback, develop him in time, and I think that's the mistake Gettleman is going to make with this. Is he wants to be good, a year or two from now, and if the rebuild is in fact the direction that the Giants are going to go in, it's simply not going to happen.
Yeah. But the one player that nobody's talking about, and this was the steal of the trade, getting Kevin Zettler, right guard from Cleveland, for a very overrated Olivier Vernon. This Zettler is the number one ranked right guard for pass protection in all of football. This guy is a stud, and I'm still waiting for the Giants to pick up Mike Remmers, who played for the Vikings and has played for offensive coordinator, now head coach, Pat Shurmur, when he was with the Vikings. If we can get him, who's an average player, that's all I'm looking for, we can concentrate with our draft picks on defense.
Well, the defense needs everything.
And we got 2 new safeties right now. So, but you're right, we have no defensive end. So, but remember, Nick, Indianapolis was on the downbeat for a few years too. And they had a good year.
Well, the other thing you can't do with football is you can't go on a 5-year plan with football, because you turn over your roster about every 3 years.
The Giants had 10 players on the team at the end of the season this past year that was on the 2017 roster. I mean,
even the Patriots don't have that many guys from year to year.
No, people would be shocked the percentage of turnaround in football.
Right, and there is a lot, but going back to the point on the Indianapolis Colts that you made, the thing with the Colts, they already have their quarterback of the future. All they need to do is just build around him. They gave him a good offensive line. He's a top 5. Luck is a top 5 quarterback in football. They built him up an offensive line over the course of a couple drafts, and all of a sudden they're a playoff team. They're going to be even better this year. The problem with the Giants is they don't have much of an offensive line, and they don't have their quarterback of the future.
Yeah. Nick,
as good as Eli Manning used to be, and he's still a decent quarterback, but he's not getting you to the playoffs.
Yeah.
You're going to need you're going to need to draft a quarterback in the top 15 picks at some point, whether it's this year or next year. You gotta do it, because the rebuild fully centers around the quarterback, because where there's not the position where there's no turnover in the NFL, not nearly as much as any other position is quarterback.
Nick,
and it's the most important position as well.
The key to the Indianapolis Colts last year was a player who I wanted the Giants to draft, Quentin Nelson, out of Notre Dame. He solidified that line. Not only was he a rookie, he made the All-Pro. This guy is a stud, and they said he was probably the best guard coming out of college in 20 years. And as great as Shaquan Barkley is, to me, Tom Brady could not play behind that New York Giant line. At this point, Will Hernandez, our left guard, has got a year under his belt. He played pretty well last year. Nate Soldier, left tackle, after a shaky first half, played better. John Halupo, our center, broke his ankle, 3rd game. He's back. The aforementioned Kevin Zettler at right guard, and we just got to pick up a right tackle, whether it be the draft or we sign this Mike Remmers. I don't expect a great line like the Eagles or the Cowboys if you can give Eli just an average offensive line. And one thing you have to remember, Nick, and I don't have a great memory, but I do remember this. After Beckham went down after Game 12 last year, you know who was their best receiver, and he was great, was their tight end, Evan Ingram, was able to get the ball. And this Ingram is a terrific pass receiver. These guys, the ball will be spread around.
Hey, the Giants, the last 6 games averaged 30 points a game.
Yeah.
It's their defense that stinks.
Hey, Nick, people don't realize this. The New York Giants had the most points in the NFC East last year. Unfortunately, they gave up the most.
They did.
Well, the NFC East was really bad last year, but no, the Giants, I think they're 3 years away if they do this right. They're 3, maybe 4 years away. But it all starts with a quarterback. You can score as many points as you want. With Manning, they were still out of it by the end of the year last year. What the Giants need to be careful of, though, is like you said, piecing the team together, putting an average crew around Eli Manning, and then going 7-9 every year for the next 5 years, because that is a path to mediocrity. You either need to get a commit. You can't you got to look at the Giants season and say, okay, it might take a couple of bad years to get better. You can't say, oh, let's piece together a bunch of, washed up veterans and hope that it sticks and hope to get into the playoffs at 8-8, 9-7, because, then you're just going to go 6-10 and you're going to be picking, 12th in the draft, and that just doesn't work.
Yeah. Nick, let me throw this out at you. You've been mentioning quarterback. The Giants, their second round pick is the 37th overall. Would you give the Arizona Cardinals that 37th pick to take Josh Rosen, who was the number 10 pick of last year's draft?
Absolutely. I think that it's absolutely crazy.
I think I would too, because I've read stuff. If Rosen was in the draft this year, he would be the best.
He'd be the first overall pick.
Exactly.
There's no doubt. It's unbelievable to me that Rosen is likely going to get traded, and the Cardinals are probably not even going to get a first-round pick in return.
No.
One year after he was, a top 10 pick and regarded as probably the best prospect in the draft.
Yeah.
And, then he spent a year in a bad system with Arizona where, his coaches were terrible. His teammates were just awful. And now people are considering him a bust and, worthy of being traded for a second round pick. That's ridiculous. And anybody who has the opportunity to jump on that really should. I'd love to see him come to New England, but I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah. New England's got the 32nd pick, last pick in the first round. I could see that would actually...
That would be 10 out of 10 trade that for Josh Rosen.
Yeah. But, I think the Patriots are just waiting for Tom Brady to drop dead. Why worry about the quarterback position? When he drops dead, they can go 2-14 the following year. Once he's gone, Belichick, they're hooked up at the hip. And the new coach,
right? Yeah, they'll go out together.
They'll go out together. So,
but I don't think the Patriots have a terrible team around Tom Brady. You look at it, he's great, but do you really believe that a 42-year-old quarterback, even though he's the best of all time, you really believe that he is bringing the Patriots to these Super Bowls all by himself? No, it's
right.
They've got a good team around him, and the coaching is in there as well. But you look at Sony Michel, he's not as good of a prospect as Saquon Barkley, but I think he's number 2 right now in the NFL. If there's a running back of the future I would have, if somebody else is in front of me takes Saquon, I'm taking Sony Michel number 2.
The genius behind Tom Brady is not his arm; it's his genius. Okay,
right.
Even at age 42, it's his mental capacity.
That's why age doesn't matter for him.
To get to the line and break that defense down and know what he is going to do and accomplish that. I've heard Brady say that he wants to play till 45, and I have no doubt he could be just as good until 45 as he is today at 42.
Yeah, Brady's always been, a mental quarterback. That's why he was drafted so low to begin with. He's never been an athlete of any sort. But he just gets the job done. He's just one of the smartest football players. He is the smartest football player of all time. And, he just his ability to read the defense, know when to put the ball and where. He's just so good at it. Yeah, I think there's no doubt he'll play to 45. He'll play until he physically can't anymore. And you never know when that can happen.
I just think, Nick, we're fortunate that we've had the opportunity to watch Brady's career, because undoubtedly he's the greatest player of all time, and I certainly would even argue that he's the greatest player of all sports of all time.
Yeah, I don't think that there would be a whole lot of argument right there.
Somebody might say
it's
a
a good
Wayne
debate.
Gretzky would be up in that conversation, but at minimum, a top 3 player of all time of all sports.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I'll let you guys go. Dave, I will hopefully see you tomorrow.
All righty. We'll see you,
All right,
Buster.
see you guys.
Bye, Nick. So I did also look for you, David. I recorded the game. What time? That was 11 o'clock. I started watching it at 1:15, so I had it recorded. Every time they shot to the crowd, I paused it to look for you, but did not
Now, let's
find
see.
you.
What other sports did we watch? Oh, there was a golf tournament this weekend.
Unfortunately, I was working 12 hours a day.
So you didn't.
So I know Rory McIlroy. I couldn't even tell you if it was a good tournament or not.
It was very exciting.
I know
Sunday.
Jim Furyk was runner-up. He's about, 82 years old
Yeah,
now?
he's 48.
Is he that old?
He's
Wow.
48, and Rory. There were a lot of guys that were in on it, but they all petered out one way or another. I actually don't like that golf course very much. I think it's too much of a made-for-TV. Mm-hmm. Unlike the Masters, which the golf course, the holes are all got spectacular character.
What are we, 3 weeks away from the
3
Masters?
weeks from the Masters.
Oh, my gosh.
And but the golf, when Rory has his irons going, the way he drives the ball, nobody can touch him.
But he shot 67, an unbelievable 65 on Friday. Then he kind of mellowed out to 70 and 70.
Well, the weather was much colder on Saturday and Sunday, and it rained.
Yeah. Because
Oh, we got another call. Wow.
Yeah. So, good evening. You're on the Best Damn Sports Show in Franklin County. Hello.
Hey guys, Duke here. You might remember.
Well,
me.
who's that?
Hey, how you doing? Sorry to play hooky tonight, but fine show. Glad you're getting some good calls. Anyway, you were just talking golf.
Yes. Did you watch the players?
I did. Yeah, I kind of the play. I love it. Like as I've told you, it was long ago when it was in March on their first go round. I caught it a couple of years, but it's so fun. It's just a great place to be. But yeah, fine effort by McIlroy. He had gotten off to great starts. It seems like in about a half dozen tourneys, and it faded badly on the weekend. I like Rory. I was glad to see him win. Although Jim still got some life in him. Just missed, came in second. Good effort by Mr. Furyk.
The big news from the golf tournament was by Rahm. Rahm was tied for the lead on 11, hit his tee ball in a bunker, fairway bunker, and his caddy told him, just hit it out, and it's a par 5. Just hit it out, and we'll take our medicine, and you'll try to get your birdie that way.
Yeah.
And he didn't. He tried to go for the green, and he hit the ball in the water, and he blew up. And I guess he swore to his caddy in Spanish, and it was all on TV.
David.
Oh, is that right? I didn't catch any
John,
of that, but I know Rahm's well known for having a pretty serious temper.
John Rahm shot 64 on Saturday. Unbelievable. In a 76 on Sunday.
Is that right? So that whole kill.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a top 10 world golfer, I think, easily. But yeah, he's got a temper issue. Oh boy, his poor caddy. I'm sure his caddy got. So is that right? He should have listened to his caddy. Then.
Yeah, the caddy. They had a little clip of it on New York Post on Monday, and the caddy's saying, "Hey, just punch it out. Just take your."
Wow.
And Rahm goes, "Oh no, I can do it. I can do it." He pulled who was the guy in Tin Cup?
Kevin Costner?
Yeah, but what was the
Kevin
guy's
Costner.
name as a golfer?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, I give Rahm credit. I think, of course, he went to Arizona State. In fact, Arizona State is the next game. Actually, the game on right now for March Madness, the play-in games, which I don't like. I don't know why they needed to throw a few more teams in the field, but it's
another few $100 million. That's all.
North Carolina Central and North Dakota State. The winner gets to play my Dukies on Friday night. And Nighthawk, we've talked about this, a little trivia question. You might recall this is, I'm embarrassed to say, North Carolina Central University is where? About Durham, North Carolina, where Duke is. I've never set foot on college, on the campus. But its former name, does this ring a bell at all? There's a Celtics connection here. Its former name is North Carolina College. Can you tell me its most famous, at least, basketball graduate?
Oh,
We've talked about this.
Sam Jones?
Very good. Very good. Sam Jones.
how'd you get
And
that?
that was the classic case before pro teams have 1 million assistant coaches and trainers. This is pretty much Red Auerbach, a one-man show. And I've mentioned this story before. Calls up, I guess he had no clue about who to draft. It was 1956, I think. Didn't have a good feel for anybody. Calls up his old friend Bones McKinney down at Wake Forest. Hey, Bones, you got anybody down there I should think about? Yes. Right, I got the guy, Sam Jones, North Carolina College, and the rest is history.
Wow.
I remembered
Anyway.
that, Duke, from the book you gave me, that one
Yeah.
with about Red Auerbach.
Yeah. Anyway, so UVM, boy, Florida State. Obviously, any team they're going to play is tough. That's a tough game. But boy, I'm not sure if I'm Florida State. I'm not sure I'm looking too forward to playing Vermont. But good break for Vermont fans with the game in Hartford.
Yes.
Now, Duke,
Yeah.
David and his wife are going down tomorrow.
Oh, is that right? You're going to the game?
Right. Yes.
Oh, wow. Good
And
for you. You
Nick-
got all kinds of travels coming. Hey, good for you. Good
Nick
job.
Mumley just called up.
I heard. Yep, I heard some of Nick's call. Of course,
Yeah,
I'm saying, Nick, nice of you to call. Why aren't you on the set? But
Yeah,
anyway, that's what the call.
he's driving down tomorrow morning at 8:00 with a
Oh,
couple
great,
buddies.
excellent.
And of course,
Yeah,
they're
what do we got?
getting
A 2:00 game. I think?
yeah, and they're getting a great second game between Marquette and Murray State.
Wow. Yeah.
Jay
Well,
Morant.
Marquette's yet another Duke connection. Wojo, remember Coach K's great guard Wojo? He's the Marquette
Yep.
coach.
Okay,
But
and
they were a good team. They had a terrible end of
Yeah.
the season. I think they lost like 5 of their last 6 games, and Murray State's got one of the most highly touted players in college. Yeah, that should be a good game.
yeah, Nick said put your money on Murray State.
Yeah,
Take
I'd be tempted to agree. Yeah, Marquette faded badly.
Yeah, this
over
Morant,
the season.
as I said, will be the second pick in the draft behind Williamson.
Yeah. Well, interesting. Yeah, I thought I would just read you a little bit of this story. It's pretty funny. It's about the Dukies. This is Wall Street Journal, their main sports guy, and I've read some of his stuff. Jason Gay, he's pretty solid. Here's a headline: I love Duke, and the love is with a heart, not the word, but a heart. I love Duke, please forgive me. March Madness is barreling straight at us, and I'm ashamed. I really like Duke. I don't mean I like Duke to do well in the NCAA men's college basketball tournament, though I like them there too. I mean, I like Duke, as in I enjoy watching Duke play, and I want Duke to succeed. I may even love them. I feel like Jeff Goldblum's scientist character in The Fly, watching myself slowly transform into something horrifying. My body and mind are defying natural laws. I'm supposed to hate Duke. Everybody's supposed to hate Duke, except, of course, for people who went to Duke. But this current Duke team, the one that's seeded number 1 in the East region and number 1 in the tournament, they're not just 29-5, talented and looking to make another deep run. They're adorable. That's right. I just claimed that Duke is adorable. My laptop is going to throw itself out the window. Anyway, just a little more. I think the college basketball police are going to kick in the door at any second. Nobody who went to the University of North Carolina is ever going to speak to me again. When this column gets published, I'm going to get a lot of emails from readers with only one word: barf. I can't blame them. I'll stop there. But anyway, he just says it's usually, they're always a good team. He usually doesn't like them, but he says he likes his team. And even Shaughnessy, Dan in the Globe, said, college basketball tournament around Boston with its heavy focus, obviously, on big-time pro sports, college basketball, even though Northeastern's in the tourney. But he says it doesn't mean anything, but I'll watch it because of Zion. I like watching this guy. So it should be a fun tourney.
Now,
but again,
Duke,
Virginia, remember what I said? I obviously want the Dukies to win, but I still put my money on Virginia. I think they're going to get, come back after last year's catastrophe against UMBC. Although North Carolina, too, those guys are tough. They could have, the game against Duke in the ACC tournament semis was a flip of the coin. So watch out for what may happen. You might get 2 ACC teams playing for the championship. That's possible.
Now, Duke, when would Virginia and Duke match up? What would be the earliest opportunity that would?
We're talking Final Four, but I'm not sure it'd be semis. I don't have the grid in front of me.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it'd be semis or the final.
Well, let me ask you this, point blank: if you were putting money down tonight, would your smart money be on Virginia?
I hate to say it, don't tell my Duke friends. In part, I'd probably put it on Virginia. In part because Duke's beaten them twice during the season. Virginia lost only one other game, I think, in the ACC tourney. For Duke to beat Virginia 3 times just seems unbelievable. But
that's the old sports adage. It's hard to beat somebody 3 times in a row in the same season.
I think North Carolina, again, that was a flip of the coin game against Duke. They're great guard there. Colby Smith, is that the guy's name? They're speedy point guard. That guy's great. North Carolina they were down by 1 point in the ACC tourney semis, and he had time. He had 10 seconds. I couldn't believe he just didn't drive towards the basket and at least get a foul, but he threw up that last shot that missed, and they just missed the tip in. But that would have been Carolina's 3rd straight win over Duke this season. It's so hard to do that. So, but hey, who knows? Duke's the number 1 overall seed. I'll never forget the fact when I think they were a number 2 seed when they lost to Lehigh and Mercer in the last 10 years. They went down in huge upsets. So you never know, but they're a pretty good team. The thing that makes me feel better about the Dukies, who had not been playing very well. Zion was out obviously for 5 or 6 games, but what made me feel better about the last game against Florida State in the ACC tourney finals was Trey Jones, their guard, brother of Tyus, who helped lead them to their last national championship, especially with Grayson Allen. Trey Jones finally played a great game. If he's playing a good game, if they hit their threes, I think they should win it all. But they're not a good 3-point shooting team. Hey, who knows? It should be fun.
I got a question for you, Duke.
Yeah.
Name me the 4 original NCAA teams that have never been in a tournament, basketball.
Yeah. Boy, that's a great question. I probably won't come up with. So again, 4.
Of the original teams that have been there's 44 teams now that have not been to the big dance, but a lot of them were D2 teams that have moved up over the last 20 or 30 years.
So 4 original.
The
D1
4
teams
original.
Start. Oh God, I'm probably not going to even come up with. It's a great question. I think you better save me the embarrassment of silence.
All right, here we go. Army.
Yeah.
Army.
No, that would have. I'm sorry. Army and who?
St. Francis of New York.
Yeah.
William and Mary.
Oh wow.
And the Citadel. And actually, in 1968, Army did qualify, but Bob Knight thought that the Black Knights would have a better shot in the NIT and turned down the invite. Think about that. Remember?
Guess who was playing for Coach Knight at that point?
Probably Krzyzewski.
Yeah, Coach K would have been, I think, on that team.
And I think Al McGuire 1 year with Marquette.
Yeah.
It was either 69 or 70. Took Marquette out of the tournament because he didn't like where they put him. And they played in the NIT too.
Oh,
Can you imagine that?
No. But my memory of Al McGuire and Marquette in the good old days when the Red Sox had spring training in Winter Haven, pretty sure. In fact, you know what? I think it was the day. I'm now remembering this more. I think I'm in Winter Haven. I think it's the day Reagan got shot in D.C.
Yep.
And the question was, and it was the finals. It was UNC against Marquette. If I'm remembering this right, I might be. And the question was, boy, should we play this game? They decided to play the game, and Marquette came up big. UNC did not have a good game, but I think I remember that game on that day in Winter Haven long ago. Wow. Anyway, so hockey, looking forward to. I realize you're immersed in work at this point. Will you pay some attention to March Madness or not much?
The disdain I have for D1 major basketball. This one and done has made a mockery of education.
Yeah. Well, But again, I just saw a contrary story to that the other day, saying, yeah, I hear the criticism about one and done. But again, Zion, I realize you tell me these guys never go to class, but is it better academically for, say, Zion Williamson? He's getting a few months at Duke, might be worth something to him besides his basketball. Without that, so you throw him right into the pros or a development league. From an academic point of view, is that better for these top guys? Is that better for them?
Listen, Zion is going to make about in his career
About $1 billion.
$500 million.
I know, but you're not answering my
But
question.
3 months, not
question.
really. I mean, his dorm room, I guarantee, will be cleared out the
Well,
night.
but he's a bad guy to make an example. But what about a lot of these? What about some of these other guys who go to the pros after one and done years, and maybe they feel okay, maybe they don't.
A lot of these
From their
guys,
point of view, is
seriously,
it bad to have 1 year or a quasi year at college? Is that
a
bad?
lot of them take, and African American studies. That they
No,
go
it's
in
real.
as
Tell me
major.
about it. UNC had their big academic scandal. Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Right, every player on that scandal, their major was African American studies. That was their major.
Okay, but fine. So you get rid of one and done. So, okay, great. So they don't show up in college half-assed for a few months, and now they never go there at all. I mean, is that better for them?
I don't think the college. I think for a lot of them, they're so isolated from regular college that it's a
Doesn't
travesty
matter.
for them. And when you think of like the football dorms that some of these schools have, and
Well, Clemson comes to mind
Right.
with the $70 million facility for the football players or something.
I think if
Yeah, I hear you.
but on the other hand, if I were advising those guys, I'd tell them not. What they should do is they should set up a true minor league system for the guys that just like baseball, and that way that the kids that go to college actually go to college.
Yeah.
And you will enjoy it just as much. You'll root for Duke, and
Sure.
no doubt about it.
The way I feel, and I may be harsh, but those three freshmen going to Duke is no different than these Hollywood people cutting checks for
Same thing.
$500,000.
Those guys don't belong at Duke anymore than
right. I can.
I wouldn't. I hope you're not blaming the student. You're blaming the students for that.
I'm
You're
blaming the
saying
administration
Zion's a bad
of
guy
Duke
for
taking
accepting a
players.
college. Don't blame Zion. Blame Duke if you want. Don't blame
Right.
Zion.
No, I am blaming.
Yes.
I am blaming Duke that they take players that have no right, or they have not earned the right to go to university of the stature of Duke.
Well, the other thing is, I was having a discussion today with somebody, and I told them if I was running a high-end university, what I would do is I would take all the admissions, and I would get a magic marker. I don't want to know your race. I don't want to know your gender.
Yep.
I don't want to know anything about you. I want the most qualified students that we can get. And if they all turn out to be Jewish, if they all turn out to be women, if they all turn out to be Asian American or Chinese, I don't care. I'll take the best ones we got and let the chips fall where they may. And the thing is, though, they try so hard today to mix everybody up. And, well, we need a certain percentage of this and a certain percentage of that.
Yeah.
And it's all crap.
Their American Asians have lawsuits against universities because they're not allowing them into the schools because.
Oh yeah, Harvard. Harvard.
But if you look at Duke, and compare the guys that are playing basketball for Duke now, compared to 10 years ago or 20 years ago, when you look at Christian Laettner and his crew, those guys, I bet you they all graduated.
Yeah. I think those are all pretty
And I'll bet you now the graduation rate at Duke, except for the two walk-ons, all the scholarship guys, they aren't graduating, they're gone.
Yeah. Now, you look at back in the day when you did not have to spend 1 year in college. Kevin Garnett is an example. He left high
went
school.
straight to the pros.
LeBron James left high school.
Let these guys earn a living.
Let them go. If they're capable of doing NBA work, let them go. Do not steal a seat in the classroom of a kid that's actually studied and had a 4.2 GPA in high school for some guy whose major accomplishment in life was hitting 40-foot jump shots.
Yeah, I guess the counter I could give you there is because of Duke's success in basketball and all the incredible publicity they get. I mean, they're such a hot school, rightly or wrongly, but, they're a hot school, and they probably get a ton more applications of mostly
no
smart
question.
kids who are trying to get in. So I guess you could say if you're looking to get, good kids, smart kids to apply, I can only assume all the publicity they get, in part because of a hugely successful basketball program, kicks the applications they get way up.
Yeah.
So I'd give you that.
But I will
point of
counter
view.
that by saying Duke is such an elite school, even if that basketball team left, they would still get the top of the top kids.
Well,
I get it, but believe me, they're getting way more applications now just because they're such a incredibly well-known school.
Yeah, but college basketball realized what a cancer they had with these one-and-done players, and that's why this new rule is going to be implemented. It's tarnished the reputation of college basketball. The quality of the NCAA today is half what it was 20 years ago.
well, they're all
And the ratings, for that matter, is half what it was 20
they're all
years ago.
chasing the money because they need the money from the basketball and the football to pay for the women's tennis
Exactly.
and the women's volleyball and all that other stuff.
You're right
Yep.
about that.
Yeah,
Of course, I'd get
Okay,
rid of that
gentlemen.
Title IX too, and then I'd start a real war. But
yeah.
Okay, I'll let you go. Carry on.
Thanks,
thanks.
Duke.
No,
So, David, I got to get this in. I went to Northfield, and I had quite a run. After being a UVM hockey fan for 35 years, it was nice to see some good hockey. We beat University of New England from
oh God, in Portland, Maine.
Portland, Maine. Beat them 2-1 in overtime. But we had a 4-game run at the Kreitzberg, starting with Suffolk, which I didn't know, out of Boston.
Suffolk's out of Boston.
Beat them 1-0. Beat Batson 5-3 on the 23rd of February. They March 2nd, we played Hobart, who's in the Final Four, 2-1. Then we beat New England last weekend 2-1. So we are set up for a game Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock at the home arena with the number 1 seed, Wisconsin Stevens Point. We're ranked third in the country against number 2, Geneseo. And this is a hockey team, David, that has 2 seniors on the team. One of the seniors is the captain. The other one doesn't even dress. Brand new coach, Cam Ellsworth, who was the assistant coach from Lowell, took over a program that should have been a rebuild year. Still would have been a good team, but this is a Cinderella story to be in the Final Four of the Division III NCAA.
Well, Norwich is good almost every year.
But packed houses, great arena, just got it's 21 years old now, the Kreitzberg, but it's got an old school feel to that arena. The scoreboard is old school. It's just, if you're into just watching hockey, not being entertained otherwise, if you want good hockey, that's the place to be. And the quality is not that different than D1.
the
Bigger,
guys are just a little smaller.
a little smaller, a little slower, and that's it. But, and I've told you this before, what you're seeing in D3 versus D1 is more puck handling, time and space. That element that you don't see in D1 because they're so darn good, and certainly you don't see it in NHL. Like as kids, we remember Stan Mikita for the Blackhawks during the 60s. Clearly one of the greatest puck handlers ever, but Mikita would not have that quote-unquote time and space in today's hockey game. So that has been great. So I can assure you at 4 o'clock, I won't be working that hard from 4 to 6. So D3 is not big time. It's not on TV, so I'll be watching it off the computer.
Well, Norwich has had an awfully good hockey program.
Yeah.
And really, since that Kreitzberg Arena and the
Mike Machine
the
took that program over.
of course, the Kreitzbergs were very good friends with our neighbors down at camp, the Prouties.
Okay.
And the Prouties used to go to all the games. And so,
Yeah, the Kreitzberg family left a number of $1 million. And I think they built that arena Again, no bells and whistles 21 years ago for just under $20 million.
And that rink now probably costs $40 million.
Undoubtedly. So just a great time. And I start talking to an old man. Of course, I'll talk to anybody in between periods. The old man was the father of the head coach, Cam Ellsworth. And I said, well, geez, she's done an incredible job this year, getting him into the Final Four, or hopefully into the Final Four. I said, I'm guessing he's just going to build up his resume here for 5-6 years. He's still in his 30s and jump to a big D3 or D1 program. He says, no, he actually loves it in Northfield. He's got 2 small kids, laid back atmosphere, D3 versus Lowell, D1. He was the head recruiter for Lowell, on the road a lot.
Oh, terrible.
So he can coach his hockey, go home for supper, and spend time with his kids. He says he's extremely happy, again, at Northfield, and expects a long tenure staying at Norwich.
Well, good for him. I hope so.
Yeah, so I got that in. So we got 9 minutes left, David, so you had something?
I'm trying to think of something. I listened to, I think our buddy Nick is all wet with the Giants with Eli Manning. Hey, when they don't forget, you got Saquon Barkley, who's going to be even better. Once they have a line, their offense, I think, is fine. I read today they might draft a defensive tackle from Alabama.
Christian Wilkins, maybe. So Alabama's got 3 defensive
guys that
on the line that are going to be drafted in the first round. And I agree, Nick is wet because they still can win with Manning.
They can win.
And he has not played behind a good line for a number of years.
And as a matter of fact, Gettleman said that not only is Manning good, they don't think they're overpaying him.
Yeah.
And I think he's right.
Yeah. I think I heard on a podcast yesterday that he's like 14th ranked in salary for a quarterback. So he's an average paid quarterback.
And what are you going to get for him?
Matt Stafford last year signed for like $27 million a year.
And I'd rather have Manning than Matt Stafford.
And he was the number 1 paid quarterback in football for about 2 weeks. I don't know who supplanted him, but Matt Stafford, I don't believe he even won a playoff game.
No.
So quarterbacks are very highly paid.
Maybe Rodgers.
I think it probably was Rodgers.
And you know how many Super Bowls does Rodgers have?
He's won 1 game, and the word has leaked out over the winter that people on his team that played with him hate him.
Same with Roethlisberger, boy. All the guys from Pittsburgh have been.
You know, these guys, they get that diva attitude, and I'm the quarterback, and I'm better than you. I know what's better for this team, and blah, blah, blah. And that's why Antonio Brown, regarded, if not the best wide receiver in football, certainly the second best, him and Roethlisberger did not get along. He wanted out, and he signed a huge contract.
Did Le'Veon Bell
signed with the Jets?
He signed with the Jets, okay.
Yeah.
And I see the Jets signed a new backup quarterback today, too.
Oh.
Nobody. The guy didn't even play a snap last year.
Yeah, I can't remember.
He was Minnesota's backup.
Okay. Was it Sean Mannion? No, that was the Rams. But I'll tell you, the Rams did, backups. And again, that's
did they get Blake Bortles?
Yeah. What a great pickup for the Rams, because a couple years ago he had a really good season. The Rams made the Super Bowl last year, and I still contend they could have won that. Todd Gurley's knee, there's something seriously wrong with him. But Bortles, I think, is good enough if who's the kid? Jared Goff goes down.
If you've got a line.
And the Rams have a line.
And if you got a defense, you can win most of the time. No. I don't see the Giants in a big 2 years. Bill Belichick could come in next year and take the Giants, and they'd go 12-4.
Yeah.
And not saying that their coach isn't a good coach. Look at what Parcells did every year when he went. He took a Jet team 1 year that was 1-15, and next year they made the playoffs. Things can turn around quickly. Football's a lot of attitude.
Yeah, football, you don't really have to rebuild that long. Now, Miami, as we mentioned 20 minutes ago, they're doing the smart thing.
Patrick stinks.
Right. They're doing the right thing. They gave him a 2-year, I think, $22 million, $11 million a year. and he will stink it up. And they will probably have
He'll
the first
beat
pick,
the crap
and
out
they
of
will
them.
get the choice of quarterback who they want, and that's the way you play. Philadelphia 76ers tanked for about 5 years. Now they got a great young team. So
It's hard, though. It's hard to tank in football, though, because you got 52 guys.
yeah,
And one guy doesn't usually make that much difference in football.
Yeah.
If the Giants get a defense, and they got a lot of picks,
in fact, the Giants have 12 picks,
and that
coming up.
division is not that tough.
Yeah.
They could go.
Yeah.
They could turn it around. Plus,
Yeah.
they're going to be playing that last place
Yeah.
schedule again too.
Now Washington has a really bad team.
Oh, they're awful.
They're gonna. They picked up a quarterback, Casey Keenum.
Yeah,
Suitcase Keenum.
Yeah.
and they're probably looking ahead to 2020's draft and get one of the top 3.
You know who used to handle a draft like this would be Sam Pollock
for the Canadians.
from the Canadians. And what he would do is he would make a trade with the worst possible team. Who do you think is going to be the worst team next year? Miami?
Yeah.
So he would give them a good player.
Well, if you remember back in 1970,
That's how we got Guy Lafleur.
they made the trade with Charlie Finley's California Golden Seals, and they wore white skates, the Golden Seals, because he also owned the Oakland Athletics.
Right.
That, very conservative period back then, but they wore white cleats, the Oakland A's. And they gave him 3 players, okay players, for the first overall pick. And lo and behold, up in Quebec, there was a young kid by the name of Guy Lafleur, and one of the top 10 greatest players of all time.
See,
So
hard to fleece guys like that now, though.
So, David, I'm getting very concerned. We've fallen out of the playoff race. We're 1 point behind Columbus for the last and final spot. Not that
You lost, what, 4 out of the last 5? You just
we won last night against Philly.
And Philly's not a playoff team. They're behind you.
They've had a good second half of the season. I think they'll be a good team next year. But where is it here? The Bruins continue to just play really good hockey. They beat a hungry team last night, New York Islanders, 5-0. And 2 weeks ago, Tampa barely lost a game in 2 months. Bruins beating them 5-1. I'm telling you, I'm not a Bruins guy. I'm an anti-Bruin. But this team is set up to make a run in the playoffs. Now, Tampa, of course, has got a record 116 points at this point.
So they're just playing the string
Yeah,
out.
they've won 56 games, David, lost 13, and 4 overtime losses. So right now, David, with 9 games left, Carolina's got 87 points. They've pretty much locked up that first wild card. So Montreal and Columbus, 84 and 83 points respectively. And the problem with Montreal is they have a very, very rugged schedule to
Well, if
finish
they're,
out the season.
You never know if Carey Price.
But they've had a season well above expectation. I won't be crying my cereal in the morning if they happen not to make it. They have a lot of young players ready to come up. So
It's too bad though, because they were really through Christmas time they were way up.
Yeah, the last month and a half they've been playing right around 500, which isn't going to get it
Well,
done.
once they get this last month, the season starts tightening up a little bit.
Yeah.
The hockey, and then the hockey will tighten up about 6 more notches.
Yeah. But whether you like hockey or not, is not Stanley Cup playoff hockey the best sport
sports
to watch in the playoffs?
Now, a week from today, I'll be on an airplane heading to Beirut, Lebanon.
I meant to talk. We got a minute left.
I'll fill you all in when I come back.
Yeah, so you're going to be gone to Beirut, not New Hampshire, but Lebanon.
No, Beirut, Lebanon for 10 days.
For 10 days. And who's going with you?
My cousin Jim Handy and his brother John.
Okay. So, and I've got to wrap things up in 20 seconds. What was the inspiration behind this trip?
I think those guys really been wanting to go, and they've done a lot of research on it. And hey, 1.5 million people went to Lebanon last year.
for tourists. And
for
when
tourists.
you land next week, what's the temperature going to be like?
I've been looking at the weather, about 65, 70.
So we're going to do a travel log when you get back. So
I'll fill you in.
So that's it, David. That show went by quick. We had a lot
did.
of really good calls tonight. So for our studio director, Zach, Super Dave. I am the Nighthawk. And remember, folks, you do not have to be a great athlete to be a good sport. We'll see you next week. Ciao.